Hello, I'm Mad Uncle Morgan, and today I would like to talk about the warning signs that a occult leader or group is perhaps not on the up and up. That they are just simply too rotten to begin bothering with. Ideally, leaders and groups would have warning labels going contents 100% bullshit, or known to sexually manipulate students, but we don't live in this world where warning labels are required for occult leaders. And so we have to, use our best judgment. Now, one of the things that's not on my list is that a leader or group requires money. While money can be a red flag, it's not always a red flag. We don't ask plumbers to provide services for free. We pay our plumbers. And occult leaders and teachers and writers are providing a service. Therefore, they deserve fair market value for their service. Exactly what fair market value is open to debate. But money by itself, the fact they want dues or class fees, is not an automatic, oh my god, run away. Now, if it's excessive, then yes, it's a warning sign. But you have to figure out exactly what excessive is. And that's not today's issue. Now, I used to be part of a small local lodge that, we charged dues. The voting members actually were the ones that set the dues. And they knew exactly where the money was going. The receipts were read out loud at the meeting, and so they knew where the money was going. The more transparent an organization is about where the money goes, the more comfortable I am personally with it. So it's okay for occult teachers and leaders to charge. It's just, it's something to be concerned about, but it's not an automatic, oh hell no, I'm not joining your group. Few months ago, I wrote an article for a newsletter called The Top 13 Signs that a group or leader is too rotten to bother with. And my 13th one was simple boredom. If you find yourself bored in an occult group, and you see the other members are bored out of their mind too, this is a danger sign, because this means that you're getting quite often regurgitated information, same information you pick up every place else. And this boredom ultimately will lead to members of the group basically creating chaos simply to fight the boredom. So for me, it's something to be aware of, that boredom is a possible warning sign. Sign number 12 that somebody's too rotten to deal with is that they have no sense of humor or humility. I've met some occult leaders who are extremely serious and their ego's really large, and it's never a good sign. Especially when they enforce rules that translate into you're not allowed to make fun of the leader, and you're not allowed to talk about how big their ego actually is. Now, please know that having an ego comes with the territory of being an occult leader, or teacher, or writer. You have to have some level of ego there. But if you're not able to joke about it or talk about it, that's problematic. And if they're faking humility, and we've all ran into these people who fake being humble, that's really a bad warning sign. So at that point in time, you may want to run for the hills. Next on my list was sexual misdeeds, number 11. If you hear stories about a leader constantly sleeping with student after student, get out of there now. It's never a good thing. Quite often, promotions will be tied to, sex. Yes, I will make you an adept miner if you sleep with me. That's not good. And sexual misdeeds are so bad that, for me, any group that advertises heavily they teach sex magic, that worries me. Okay, it's a troublesome sign. So yes, sexual misdeeds are my number 11. Number 10 on my list is lawyers and trademarks. Bottom line, there's only one reason to trademark something, and that is you're using it as a business name. And occultism gets ugly when it is turned into a business. The only trademark I've ever seen taken out that wasn't bad was actually a counter trademark to somebody else. That's the only time I've seen a trademark used for a good purpose. The rest of the time, it's the fact that they want to get a monopoly. Imagine, for instance, if somebody decided to trademark the term Reiki. Yes, they were trying to corner the market on something that, quite honestly, is not the exclusive property or tradition of any one person. I'm especially suspicious of trademarks when lawyers are involved. Occult leaders who basically sick a lawyer on anybody who looks cross-eyed at them, that's a bad sign. Because that means that even if something goes wrong and you think about going to the authorities or you tell other people, you can end up in a court battle defending your own honor, and court battles are expensive. So lawyers are a bad sign if they're used regularly. Now, there are times when everybody needs a lawyer. Recently, my family needed a lawyer because my mom needed to make a will. That's legitimate. But if you see frivolous lawsuits, that's a warning sign to run away. Number 9 on my list is non-disclosure statements and/or absolute secrecy. I find absolute secrecy to be very troublesome because quite often absolute secrecy is all about hiding the misdeeds of the Well, I've heard bad things about seminars that have non-disclosure statements. Um, and basically, the non-disclosure statements with a bad group is not actually to protect the information they're teaching. It's about protecting the leadership's position and crushing any negative criticism. Oh, you signed a non-disclosure statement for this seminar. You're not allowed to tell people that you paid $300 to be taught nothing. Now, I've seen that actually happen, where a non-disclosure statement is being used simply to prevent word that you're fleecing people from getting out. Number 8 for me is claims of superior lineage and ultra-secret knowledge. Basically, occult groups have a common pool of knowledge. At the higher levels, yes, it starts to differentiate. But for the most part, you cannot claim, for instance, that your line goes back to the ancient Egyptians and you're doing it exactly like the ancient Egyptians are doing it. Or were doing it. Okay, and some people actually claim this. As for lineages, there's 3 types, and the 3 types tend to get muddled into one. But claims of superior lineage, especially in certain types of organizations, is troublesome. Like in Wicca, basically, there's no real lineages that start out before 1951. Anybody who's claiming a lineage previous to 1951 is making up stuff. In Golden Dawn, there's no lineages that exist before 1888. Anybody who claims different is making stuff up. There is nothing actually wrong with a tradition that started last Thursday. And ultra-secret knowledge and a superior lineage is very troublesome when a leader claims that they're a student of somebody and they don't mention them by name. No one has ever met their teacher. And there's absolutely no evidence they actually exist. I've seen some people in this mode actually hand out material that turns out was translated from another language. And they were claiming a superior lineage and secret teachers because they didn't think anybody else was aware of the material in its original language. So you gotta be careful about people claiming superior lineage and ultra-secret knowledge. Number 7 is the use of the degree system to maintain control. Where basically people who are critical of the leader have absolutely no chance to advance. And you have to do exactly what the leader says if you ever want to be advanced. And quite often you end up, doing things like borrowing money to the person. Oh, with the knowledge that you're never going to get repaid. Or having to loan your car to them. Or letting them have to stay in your house. And this is actually a condition of your advancement. Advancement should actually be based on general behavior and knowledge and skill. It should not be conditional to you kissing the leader's ass all the time. And as I mentioned before, sexual misdeeds are part of this problem. Number 6 is hiding of dirty laundry. if there's a... If you see major efforts made to hide dirty laundry, this is a problem. I've seen groups where basically leaders of groups of larger organizations, basically, you're not allowed to talk about anything they've ever done wrong. And if you do, if you're evicted, that's a problem. If they do something that's actually technically illegal, and you're threatened with a lawyer over it, oh, this is bad. Hiding of dirty laundry is actually something that shows up on occult cults, warning sheets, and it's unpleasant. And if there's enough hiding of dirty laundry, you could end up in a group that has a repeat offender. For instance, with the sexual misdeeds, there are leaders out there who are repeat offenders, but the group is not allowed to talk about the fact that they are repeat offenders. So it's something to be worried about. Number 5 for me is does not cite sources. Okay. Earlier I was talking about the super ultra secret teacher. While on the surface that look like they're citing sources, no, that's not actually citing sources. If you cannot actually trace down none of their sources, then odds are they're making up crap. And this does not cite sources extends to stories about when they were a student. If you don't hear stories about when they were a student or mistakes they made as a student, then they're concealing stuff, and that's worrisome. Number 4 is exclusivity of your membership in their group as a requirement for training. Now, the reason this is a warning sign is it can be used so that a student cannot compare information with other people. I've seen instances where this was going on, and when the students finally did compare information, they found out everything that they were being sold as super ultra secret was actually public domain already. So that's worrisome. Especially if they have a reading list where you can only read certain books. A good teacher does not worry about you being a member of another group. Okay? Because good training will overwhelm bad training. You have a limited amount of time and attention and energy, and you will go to the group that's the best bang for your buck, so to speak. Good teachers don't worry about being compared to bad teachers, okay? Good teachers will, basically be chosen over the bad. And that what happens. Number 3 for me needs a little explaining. While I am a firm believer that magic is not for the masses, it's not for everybody, that reason is that most people cannot accept change. Okay? But I've seen people claim elitism and use the excuse that they lack resources for justification for the elitism. First off, type of groups that your average occult student's in the elite don't even look at these groups, okay? We're not Scientology. Um, you know, we're small groups, you know. It's possible to create elitism and get those big names, but your average group will not be able to do that. And more often than not, the lack of resources that is actually occurring is that outside of the leader, everybody else is low level. Okay? And with like a system like Golden Dawn, which has lodges and officers and stuff, in theory, there is no limit to the number of members it can handle. In theory. But in order to do this, you have to have a certain amount of high-level people. If on the other hand, you have like one or two people at the very top, quite often a husband and wife team, and then everybody else is low level, or you only count like a handful of high-level people, but there's hundreds of members, and they're citing lack of resources for this. This is iffy. Okay, it's not automatically a run for the hills situation, but you need to be kind of aware of the fact that today the whole lack of resource thing is not nearly as bad as people make it out to be. We have print-on-demand books, we have Skype, we have YouTube, we have online groups. We can handle large numbers, okay? It's just that large numbers are not necessarily what the system's about. The elitism should come naturally. It should not be something that they're going, oh, well, I have to be selective because I only have so much resources. With the acceptance of local groups. Local groups, I'll be honest with you, they have their upper limits. Okay? One of the limits is how many people you can get into a room. Okay? You cannot stack people like cordwood. But yeah, material resources are not a good excuse. Now, time resources, that's a good excuse because, you know, a teacher can only handle so many students. Number two for me is when you hear a leader, expel a lot of people, and it's always the student's fault. And no one actually drops out. They're always expelled. Okay? Anybody who leaves the group is formally expelled shortly thereafter. And this is troublesome because quite often the offense, when you actually, get both sides of the story, the offense was a trumped up charge. Now, there are bad students, okay? And there are some things that you should be automatically shown to the door. For instance, if you end up on the sexual predators list, that's a big no-no. Okay? That should be an automatic, you're out of their offense. Now, where do you draw the line on, stuff like that? For instance, I have to struggle with that personally because I write erotica. Or I used to. Okay. Is that a sexual offense? Well, there are some people who would like to claim it is. in my defense, all my characters are over the age of 18, and it's consensual sex. Okay? But yeah, it's one of those situations where, in a properly ran system, students drop out. Okay? And you should have more dropouts than expulsions. The number of expulsions far outweigh the number of official dropouts. Have a problem. Now my biggest reason to run away is teachers who are actually eager for new students and actually want large numbers. Now, the ones that brag about having the biggest groups and the most numbers and pretty much accept everybody, where you know, it's almost unheard of somebody not being allowed in. That's a worrisome sign, because for me, that's a sign that they're just letting people in to collect dues and stroke their egos. And for me, that's, if you see somebody just gathering students to gather students, run away. Don't ask any questions, just run away. Because if you are dumb enough to join, either you're going to waste your time and money, or you're going to end up regretting it. Something to think about. I'm Uncle Morgan, and have a good evening.